Hello, welcome to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I am Iris J. I hope that you're doing well. I'm posting this as we're just coming out of the Aquarius new moon. Hopefully the awakenings that came and are still coming have been gentle and or soul satisfying that we're welcoming them. And if there are some rough waves here and there, may they turn gentle soon. I am chatting with you today about this very, very significant transit that we have in February. We are already in it. This is Chiron conjunct the North Node in Aries. It's happening at right around 16 degrees in Aries. And this is a very significant transit. It is really important for our own individual healing and growth and the evolution of our sacred self that we literally are here to embody and live. And so I'm going to talk about this here. It's really important, I think, to begin by talking about Aries a little bit, because I also feel that this transit, I mean, we're talking about Chiron, the wounded healer. Chiron is one of our archetypes in astrology that signals an archetypal aspect of our psyche, which translates as soul, that we come into this life with. Okay, and yes, it is the wounded healer. It is a wound here in transiting Chiron. It's working with a wound in our sense of self, in our sense of Aries, which I'm going to talk about. That we come in with this, and absolutely life circumstances, social locations, personal journeys, DNA is all going to impact how we feel and shift and change with that soul wound. It's also important to recognize that Chiron is also something we're coming in with. It's a deep, deep, deep archetype in our soul memory that really ultimately has to do with our soul's separation from source, spirit, God consciousness, divine love, so many words that we can use to articulate that source energy. And conjunct the North Node, when we're talking about the transiting nodes, we are absolutely talking about karmic release, growth, evolution. The North Node, absolutely alignment with what our soul is ultimately here in a plan that's crafted, co-created and co-crafted with source and our soul's inherent wisdom to evolve, to grow, to heal. And it's also, of course, talking with the South Node, who there is the karmic release, and that South Node is in Libra. So we're in the Aries Libra axis. Aries, our self, our impulses. Libra, our relational way of being. And to get to the point, I'm circling back into it, looping through. I really feel that while this is such a personal transit for us, and this has to do where we have 16 degrees of Aries in our chart, what house that's in. In terms of the collective, it is also an evolution for how we embody, understand, work with, love, co-create with the archetype of Aries. This is North Node. This is destiny, expansion, karmic evolution. And Aries is an archetype that through traditional astrology, through the shifts over thousands and thousands of years from the Aries age into the Pisces age, and now as we begin with humanity shifting into the Aquarian age, that the lower manifestations of Aries, and when we talk about the lower manifestations, my mind is moving too quickly for my words to work with. When we're working with the lower manifestations, sometimes this is referred to as shadow. Often it's that sign's archetype when it's driven by fear. And Aries is often talked about in a lot of the astrology books that came out in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and still today, and especially in pop astrology and all the meme world there, Aries is really just stereotyped in terms often of an Aries energy that's driven by fear, which is when Aries manifests selfishly, or when Aries manifests without care for others, when it's not integrated into the Libra axis, but is acting as if they could pull apart. And when any archetypal sign is driven by fear, it's not integrating with its counterpart. Aries energy as an archetype is about our sacred instincts. It is about the birthing into this human form and feeling raw, pulsing energy, fire. It's primal fire. It's energy that in its truest source is not actually even touched by fear. It's not touched by greed. It's not touched by the lessons of patriarchy and capitalism and colonialism. It's not touched by lessons of power over, which is what all those big words of ideology teach us. It's pure, raw intuition that is actually coming straight from the sign that comes before it, Pisces, union with the divine. And so however this transit is acting with us personally, it's also on a wider scale asking us, from an evolutionary astrology lens, to evolve and co-create with the Aries archetype in ourselves. Now, how is this potentially manifesting in our own lives? Well, Chiron is conjunct the North Node in Aries, 16 degrees. So firstly, you want to see, do you have anything in your chart in Aries around 16 degrees? Do you have anything down there in Libra around 16 degrees? Do you have anything in a square in Cancer or Capricorn around 16 degrees? If you do, it's being activated right now by this transit. And if you don't, we're still being activated significantly by this transit. Now, this is Chiron. Okay, and Chiron is that soul wound that we come in with, and it's a wound that then is going to manifest in different ways throughout life experiences. And here, we're talking about transiting Chiron in Aries in our sense of self, in accessing that divine raw impulse of fire and intuition. When Aries is acting from an embodied place that is not driven by fear, it is feeling a mind, heart, gut sinking up, and it just moves with it. It doesn't think, it doesn't question it, and it's not, if it's driven by fear, then the gut is out of sorts and the heart is panicking and the mind is ruminating, right? But when Aries is in alignment, it's also then connected to those relations that it's with, but it's able to move in a more intuitive, instinctual way. And this is, regardless of how that alignment is happening, Aries is a leader of the zodiac because it's willing to move into places that once we think about, we might be like, oh no, that jump looks too big. And our body might know it can make that jump over the crevice, but our mind is not so sure. And our mind is thinking about times in the past when we fell and we didn't make the jump, and it's projecting that onto the jump. And that's when things get out of whack. But Aries, when it's just aligned and there's that immediate knowledge it can make the jump, it goes. And then it shows others that it can make the jump. And Aries is a leader in that sense, that it's willing to go and it's willing to move first. And that's a part of our psyche that wants to come up to the surface, that wants to release, South Node in Libra, the relational memories of this life that, regardless if they're connected to past life experiences, if we open up to that framework, in this life, lessons we learned about silencing ourselves, hiding ourselves, contorting ourselves into shapes, code switching for the sake of others in one-on-one dynamics, where that's always also related to bigger social paradigms as well. It is wanting to release those habits of relating that hide and cover over and smother and repress and silence our aligned instincts to divine intuition. And here I do think it's important, because this is Chiron, because this is a really significant transit, and the ruler of Aries, Mars, as we are coming through this week in February, with the exact conjunction being on the 19th. I don't think I said that. I think I went straight into talking about this without the facts. We're already in with a 1 degree orb of this. We're moving through it. The exact conjunction's on the 19th. It's going to slowly separate, and by the end of February, the North Node and Chiron are going in their ways. And as this is happening, Mars is moving through the last degrees of Capricorn to meet with the gatekeeper at the 0 degree mark of Pluto and move into Aquarius. It's following Mercury, who's already done this, and Venus is not that far behind. But this is so significant because when Mars conjuncts Pluto, there is a death cycle. There is a death cycle and a rebirthing, and it is a breakdown in our own personal drive and also in the collective drive, a desire for a breakdown on an evolutionary scale of the parts of ourself and our drive in this world that are aligned with the forms of power that are not about moving forward into equality, about thinking this type of person or this type of people or humans ourselves are any greater than other people, other groups of people, and or all species that we inhabit this earth with. That's Aquarius. Aquarius is radical equality. Aquarius is able to build a new society because it is not focused on what separates us. It's focused on how we are all part of the interconnected web. And Mars is going into this death cycle with Pluto, which absolutely relates to this conjunction of Aries and the North Node. And so there's a part of our psyche, of our sense of self, of our divine instincts, of our ability to tap into primal fires through our spirit. That's Nikita. She doesn't usually go for a close-up, but she did. That is going through an incredible transformation this month. And this is where Chiron absolutely also relates to the word trauma, okay? And the word trauma in our present culture is actually not always an easy word to work with because it's a word that covers, at this day and age, a huge umbrella of experiences. And I'm not going to go into that. For folks that don't know, I wear another hat and I am a radical trauma theorist. This is part of what I do in my scholarly work and in my community work as well. But however we relate to this word in our own sense of self, and this is not focusing on the stories that create trauma. This is about a wound in our relationship with ourself. A wound that has potentially kept us from claiming those parts of ourselves that we need in order to bring that mind, heart, gut into alignment, our creativity, our attunement to our own needs, our own desires. Especially if we are talking about childhood trauma, we can live separated from our own desires. We can take on the desires of parents, of family, of society, of particular ethnic groups, of particular class status. We can take on the desires of so many others. And this is about letting ourselves connect with our own sacred desires, soul-driven desires, which are also aligning to that Mars breaking down with Pluto at the final stages of Capricorn and moving into a heightened evolution of the drive and the self in the process of individuation, which all of us are on in these human journeys as we're part of something much greater than ourselves as well. And this could go deep. This could be aspects of the self that literally, despite whatever work we've done, despite how many years we've been doing shadow work or been in therapy or been working, this is different because this is not about other people. This is about us connecting to our own drive that may have told ourselves to hide parts of ourselves, to run away from parts of ourselves. And the Chiron conjunct the North Node says, stop running, turn around and look in the mirror and see this beautiful self that you are. And that all those shadows of self and all those projections of other people and other ways of life that were put on to the self and probably put on for decades, that they're not the self, and they probably never were. And the thing about Chiron, especially conjunct the North Node, is this is not getting stuck in any of the stories. This is not getting stuck and talking in circles about past experiences. This is about talking to ourself, connecting with ourself, acknowledging ourself, witnessing ourself, and allowing ourself to move forward with the parts of ourself that we were most likely taught to throw away, to hate, to hide, to shame. And it is like, think of that little self. What did she, he, or they want to do? What did they want to do in a way that has nothing to do with career, has nothing to do with money, just wanted to do to express themselves? And some of that might come up, and we might need parts of ourselves to access that in order to move through into the lives that we are building for ourselves. And those lives are changing. Uranus just squared an Aquarius new moon as Pluto just moved into Aquarius. Those lives are changing. Our lives are changing. And this is this beautiful initiation in which healing wants to happen. And there might just be a simple letting go. There might be a ritual or sitting with ourself. But there is something in that idea of turning and looking at the self and just loving ourselves, all of ourselves. Not hiding, not needing even to name it, just opening up. And in doing that, we let go whatever relational ways we were taught about hiding ourselves. And then we move on. And the North Node continues into Aries towards the 0 degree point, and the Chiron will start journeying forth beyond the 16th degree. And Pluto and Mars, which is exact on the 13th, Mars will start moving into its new cycle in relationship to Pluto through Aquarius. So this is a moment, and February is a really dynamic month. And if you want to go a little deeper into these energies and get support and some thriving joy around this type of work, because I think one of the really unfortunate things about our culture is that we assume that our wounds and working with our wounds, or a wound coming up, is necessarily shadow, is necessarily dark, is necessarily painful. And working with our wounds can be joyous, thriving work, because it is a reconnecting with ourselves. And that's why this transit is not about whatever we've survived or what was done to us or what continues to be done. It is about us in our relation to ourself and reclaiming a sacred Aries self for ourselves, and what Aries is asking us to awaken to and evolve with. And on that point, I was saying, I am offering a workshop through my Patreon realm. You can join for free. The workshop is free. You can go to my website and the info link is there. And that's on February 18th. And we would love to see you there. So sending blessings for this Chiron conjunct North Node out to you, and I will see you soon. Take care.